Republicans are trying to suppress your right to vote and rig the 2026 elections. But today's guest, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, well, she is fighting back, one of the most outspoken new voices in politics. She is going head to head with Republicans in Congress. And now she's leading the charge for fair maps in her home state of Texas. In this interview, she breaks down what Democrats can learn from the 2025 elections, how Prop 50 in California is a blueprint for fighting back nationwide, and what's really going on behind closed doors with the Epstein files. But first, subscribe to Democracy Docket to stay informed about how you can defend democracy. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, welcome back to Defending Democracy.
Absolutely. It's great to be with you.
All right. Since the last time we talked, Donald Trump has become the authoritarian that he always wanted to be. Your House Republican colleagues have turned out to be extreme cowards, and they all got their asses kicked in Virginia, New York, and around the country. So I'm going to play dealer's choice with you and let you pick where you want to start.
I obviously would love to start with the ass kicking that took place on November 4th. It was so beautiful.
It really was. And, it was one of these things where you saw, progressives win, you saw moderates win, you saw wins at the statewide level, wins on the statewide level, by the way, like we've never seen, right? We saw two Georgia statewide Democrats win for the first time, I think, in a non-federal election since 2006. We saw Democrats in Mississippi break their
Supermajority.
supermajority.
Yep.
But let's start with redistricting because there was a huge win in California, and I know you've been dealing with this in Texas. So, what do you make of what Republicans are up to with redistricting? How Democrats are fighting back? What do you make of that landscape?
Yeah, so absolutely so excited for the California win. Election day, I was in California. Big ups to the governor there, Governor Newsom, who I absolutely like a lot better than my governor. But what we saw was really this contrast, right? Not just within the states, because I truly believe that if the state of Texas had put this to the voters, it wouldn't have passed there. I absolutely don't believe that Texans believe that we needed to enter into this kind of gerrymandering. And I honestly think that Governor Abbott knows that. That's exactly why he absolutely would not even think about trying to get this to the voters. Instead, he decided that he would do whatever he wanted to because he wants to be a tyrant and a dictator, much like his idol, the president, right? So I think it was great for a couple of reasons what California did. Number one is because they actually took it to the people. Number two, it's because they didn't start a fight, but they decided that they would finish it. And number three, it's because the people were able to say, hell no, not on my watch. It was a great rebuke of Donald Trump, which is what we saw throughout the entire country, even though the Republicans are trying to downplay what took place on election day. There was a huge rebuke of Donald Trump everywhere, whether you're talking about Mississippi or Georgia or New York or Virginia or New Jersey or Pennsylvania or California. You saw the rebuke taking place everywhere. And I think that so long as we're allowed to still have elections, there is more of that to come. But I don't think that he wants to make the ballot box accessible. And I don't know that he is above cheating. In fact, I would argue that he is a cheater. We
He's
do
definitely
know
not above cheating.
we do know that one of his friends has purchased Dominion. So it's going to be really important for us to educate all states that we can to make sure that their Secretary of States are like, we don't want the Dominion machines. Because I personally believe that that ally purchased Dominion so that he could potentially play with the machines because we know that they're trying to cheat by changing the lines for the midterms. And I think that they're trying to solidify their cheat potentially with the voting machines.
All right. So I said I was doing dealer's choice, but honestly, I got to get to your House Republican colleagues because they are so spineless. I mean, they are so pathetic. I mean, there's like no dignity level below which they will fall. So I don't know if you noticed this, but when Republicans got their asses kicked on November 4th, you could just see Donald Trump sitting there and being like, okay, do I blame like fraud And he's like, okay, even I can't get away with that because like people, it was like everywhere and it was like huge margins. So I know what I'll do. I'll blame Republicans in Congress. and so, and Mike Johnson just takes it. And all these Republicans in Congress just take it. Like, do they know how pathetic they are? Like behind the scenes, when the cameras are off, do they come up to him and they're like, okay, look, can you just lay off on us? Like, we know we have no spine. We know we're pathetic, but like, don't go hard on us. Or do they actually think they're doing something other than whatever Donald Trump wants?
I mean, they're letting Mike Johnson for sure take the hits, right? I mean, you see Marjorie going on her very liberal media tour to beat up on Mike Johnson as well. So they are making him the punching bag. I was communicating with a Republican just about 2 days ago, actually, and he was asking me about something else. But I was like, "Shouldn't we be back at work by then?" And then he goes, "Well, I hope so, but I have no idea." So in the meantime, I'm just like, "What is happening?" Right? And literally he was like, I would rather we just kind of get back to work." And it's like, yeah, and I don't think that this point has really been pushed very heavily, which is that you only need the continuing resolution because it's a stopgap. It's like putting it on layaway. Like, hold on, wait a minute, we need a few extra days, and then we will finish our homework, right? Well, the thing is, the Senate is like, yeah, so we've been shut down during the entire time that we were supposed to try to get kind of the real bills passed, which are the appropriations bills. And so I don't think that we'll get it done, even if we pass the continuing resolution to the date that we said we felt like we could get our homework done by. It is clear that we won't be able to get that done, right? But no one's talking about the fact that the House could be in right now. We
Yeah.
could be passing appropriations bills. We could be opening, like reopening different branches of government because we have 12 different appropriations bills. So for instance, we've got the legislative branch. And so right now we know that some members are losing staff. I just lost one of my staff members. I
Well,
mean, this is really tough on all of us. And I think that the only reason we may start to see things shift a little bit is because now, yeah, our staffers finally missed their first check, right? So it's starting to get tight for our own staff, whether you're the House or the Senate. And so I do anticipate that we will see some movement, but we could have been opening one branch at a time. We could have been doing something about the military. We could have just passed appropriations, and then you don't need a continuing resolution. But instead, Mike Johnson has actually been doing the bidding of Donald Trump. He has decided to keep the House out because he doesn't want to talk about Donald Trump's pedophile friends and, well, whether or not we will have documentation of Trump actually being a pedophile. Now, we know about the rumors that swirled as it relates to the beauty pageants. We know about obviously what E. Jean Carroll accused him of and a jury found him liable for. So I don't know that it's really like a far stretch, but whatever it is, he definitely doesn't want us to talk about it to the extent that the house has been out for like 4 months or something. I don't know. We haven't really worked in 4 months.
right. So you're saying that, and Eric Swalwell said this, like he's the first person who told me this, that basically this is just an Epstein shutdown. Like basically this whole thing with like the House not coming into session, like, and it's wild. Like literally the Republicans like won't let people come back to Washington, D.C. to like do anything official. And his theory was this is because if they came back, they'd have to swear in the Democratic member elect from Arizona. That would then be the would meet whatever the threshold is that would allow a force of the vote to release the Epstein files. And at that point, he's like, look, all these Republicans are going to vote to release the Epstein files. Like
Oh,
their
yeah.
gambit is to not have the vote come up. But you
Yep.
agree with that? That this is all about
Oh,
keeping a vote on the
absolutely.
Epstein files?
Absolutely. Now, they would not help to get the bill to the floor by signing on to the discharge petition. And yes, that will be the 218 signature. And so, what is required in the US House is that you have 218 members that sign on. And usually, it does have to be a bipartisan pairing because typically, if you are the majority party, then the majority party has the speaker, and the speaker would most likely see this as something to bring to the floor. But this is basically where the people, the members of the House, are able to override and say, you know what? Mr. Speaker, you don't want to bring this up, but this is something that we want to vote on. And so if they literally vote no, that is on their record. That is on their record. So all this stuff about us talking about how they protect pedophiles, it will not be in theory. It will be in actuality because they would have cast a vote saying no. So all of them will try to pretend like they're heroes and they care about children and they care about sex offenders once the vote passes, right? But the reality is that, but for them not agreeing to sign on, we shouldn't have to wait for more Democrats to be sworn in special elections before we can get the 218 votes. But that's okay. We've got Rep-elect Grijalva, and hopefully soon we will have Rep-elect Christian Menifee out of Houston. As we know that that election is now going to a runoff, but that it's going to a runoff between two Democrats. So we know that we're going to get another Democrat. So no matter what he tries, unless he plans to keep the House shut down for the rest of this term, we are going to vote on the release of the Epstein files. It is going to happen, Mike Johnson. So you may as well put your big boy pants on and go ahead and bring us back and pretend that you want to do something for the American people so that hopefully, just maybe, you have a chance at holding on to the House. I know he said in his press conference today or yesterday, basically they're rigging the system. So he anticipates that when we get to the midterms, it won't be a night like tonight. But I've got news for him. States like Indiana Republicans don't want to go forward. And frankly, because we had such a strong night on November 4th, I anticipate that other state houses may think twice about doing this, as we saw what happened in Virginia. We saw the big wave that came through that now gave them a supermajority in the House. And guess what? Virginia has said they are willing to play ball. They are willing to redistrict their map and get into the arms race. So we may see a change in attitude, especially when you can go to a state like Mississippi and end up losing your supermajority in the Senate. They may need to say, no, we are running away from Donald Trump. We are running towards the middle instead of running towards him.
Yeah, I just got to say, I live in Virginia and I'm with State Senator Lucas. I'm for a 10-1 map in Virginia, just for the record. So everybody's clear. Right now it's 6-5. I don't think anyone could look at the election returns in Virginia, either this time or frankly in the presidential elections or the Senate elections, and think that this is a 6-5 state. So I'm in favor of a 10-1 map. I'm with her. All right. So one other House question, and then we're going to talk Texas redistricting. Um, I am going to miss if you tell me the era of you dismantling Marjorie Taylor Greene is behind us. I'm going to miss it. Like honestly, it has been so cathartic over the years. Is she now turning into like a moderate? Like what's going on with her?
I don't think so. I think, and people disagree with me, but this is my theory and I'm
Oh,
running with it.
you're the expert when it comes to her. When it comes to living inside that head rent free, you're the one. I'll be right back with more of my conversation with Representative Jasmine Crockett in a moment. But Republicans are rigging maps. They're trying to suppress voting rights. They really don't like free and fair elections. I started Democracy Docket in 2021 to be a independent voice, a pro-democracy media outlet that will help keep you informed about what's going on in democracy in court. But it needs your help to support its work. So please become a premium member now at the link in the description below.
So I think Marjorie wants to run for Senate. If you know
Oh,
anything
oh,
about Marjorie, you know that she was looking at running for Senate against Ossoff. And the polling numbers were really bad in the general, to the extent that basically Donald Trump told her to stand down because she probably had a decent shot at actually making it through a Republican primary. And even now, she still has a really decent shot of making it through. No one has really made a name for themselves on the Republican side. And the big fear was that the governor of Georgia would jump in, Governor Kemp, and then it would be a little bit of a different dynamic. But like he's decided that he wasn't going to seek the position. And so, what I think she's trying to do, I would not be shocked if she starts to do polling to determine whether or not she's actually doing better now as it relates to a general election matchup between her and Ossoff. And I just think that that's what it is.
all right. So you don't think she's had some real change of heart?
Hell no. I mean, listen, she okay, so she is like, "Oh my god, these health insurance premiums, nobody can afford this. What is happening? This is terrible for our people." Now, I agree with what she said, honey. I
Right.
do. But when you check the voting record, I'm pretty sure she voted for the big ugly bill. And the big ugly bill is where this happened. And we made it clear. I mean, even if she didn't read the bill, even if her staff, which we all get $2 million a year to run everything in our offices, even if your paid staff didn't read it, if you would have read the tea leaves of the Democrats, we made it very clear that 15 to 17 million people were going to lose their health care. We talked about Medicaid, we talked about Medicare. And granted, we probably should have gone a little bit further about what that would mean, but pulling $1 trillion out of the healthcare ecosystem, somebody has to replace it if the system is going to remain standing, right? And that means the rest of us. So this is spread out amongst all of us because that $1 trillion is going back into the pockets of the richest one percenters who did not need it, right? Like these are the guys who have seen their income go up versus those at the quote unquote bottom, those that are the working poor, those that unfortunately still live in states that haven't decided that they were going to raise their minimum wage beyond the national minimum wage, which is still only a paltry $7 and change, right? So, like, we've seen that, like, workers' wages have been stagnant, if not actually gone down by the time you adjust for inflation, versus the top one percenters. They are, I mean, they were talking about how Elon may become the first trillionaire. Like make it make sense, right? But she voted for that. And that bill only passed by one vote.
Hmm.
One vote. So, like Marjorie, if like this epiphany would have taken place, when it mattered, then maybe we wouldn't be where we are right now. But we're just like, okay, at a very minimum, when it comes to the Affordable Care Act and the healthcare subsidies that help with these insurance premiums that are definitely going up because everybody's is going up, we at least don't need you to kick people while they're down. That is basically what the Democrats are saying. Like, bro, you already took so many people's health care. You already made it to where another group of people just won't be able to afford health care. And now you're saying, oh, yeah, by the way, those subsidies, let's go ahead and allow those to expire. At the same time that we made these tax cuts for the people that don't need it, we made those permanent. But let's go ahead and expire those. And it doesn't make sense because, again, another layer of this that people aren't talking about is just because you don't have healthcare doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden going to be healthy.
Right.
People are still going to be sick. They're still going to be sick. So what do you do when you get sick? You go to the doctor, right? But now maybe some of the preventative care that they would have gotten to make sure that the overall cost of keeping that life well and alive would be lower. It's not going to happen. So for all the people, that's exactly what I was gonna say. So for all the people that are upset because they're gonna be in an emergency room with a stroke or a heart attack or whatever, and they're gonna be trying to figure out how to triage the situation and figure out who goes where, and you're gonna be complaining about the lack of beds and people being. I mean, we saw this in COVID, so I know that this can happen. Not to mention those in rural America already have a lower life expectancy, and it is only going to be further decreased because, again, of a lack of healthcare access. So, I mean, it doesn't really work for anybody. So, I don't know why there aren't candidates that are talking about. And I think that Marjorie is being helpful to the extent that if I say the exact same things, because to be perfectly honest, Democrats have been saying this, right? But like there were certain people that didn't hear us just because we got a D in front of our name. So now there are people that will listen to her that before wouldn't have listened, even though we were campaigning for what was best for all of us. Instead of doing this blue state, blue voter, red voter, we tend to kind of just want to support people.
All right. So I promised I wanted to get back to Texas. So Texas, kicked off this whole gerrymandering race because uh, Donald Trump asked Greg Abbott to do it, and Greg Abbott said, "Sure, what the hell, we'll do it." And one of the things that came out after the map was passed and a lawsuit was filed, and my law firm was among the law firms that filed the lawsuit, and there was a 10-day hearing. And one of the things that came out during that hearing was that the map was drawn by a guy in Washington D.C. Like, and he took direction from the RNC and the White House. In fact, I think he testified that, whatever input there was, whatever local hearings there were, he didn't pay any mind to those. He didn't like he was doing what he was told to do. And the legislative Republican leaders in the state basically said, They just got the map handed to them. Like, this was not the product of some in-state demand among the citizenry or even Republicans in the state. They just were given the map and they voted for it. So tell us a little bit about how to think about this new map. People are asking questions like, what does it mean? Is it really 5 seats? After the election just saw results we just saw, might Republicans backfire on them? Like, what is your political assessment of this map?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much to your team as well as all of the teams that have been engaged in this litigation. I remember the day that I got the phone call about the map jar actually testifying
Yeah,
because, as you know, we were in litigation about the 2021 maps in the first
that's right.
place.
That's right.
And they did everything to fight against giving access to this tool, right? And so all of a sudden, they felt like we need to put them on the stand, which I felt like, man, you guys believe you're losing, which is great. I mean, their filings suggested they should lose, right? Because they were filing and they were trying to say, oh, no, 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 this racist letter that we got from our racist attorney general saying that we need to change the maps because the maps are racist. No, we didn't pay attention to that. We didn't. We absolutely didn't. We gave it no. So they were trying to walk back what the attorney general sent them because they knew that that didn't comply with federal law, right? Or how I actually testified in the hearing in Austin, and one of my classmates from the state house decided that he was going to be a smartass, and he decided he was going to ask me a question about the ruling that was allegedly the basis for why they were doing this. So they were like, we didn't listen to the AG, but we did look at this ruling out of Galveston and what it said. And that's really the reason we did it because it said, those pesky little coalition districts, you can just destroy them. That's what it says. So we didn't have that information when we drew these lines in 21, but then we got this information. So we just did it because we can get rid of coalition districts, which also goes to race, but
Yes, it
whatever,
does.
right? Like whatever. And I was like, that's not the holding. That's not the holding. Oh, yes, it is. So they like doubled down on it. And then finally, I guess somebody was like, yo, y'all read that wrong. Like y'all were all over the record
Yeah.
saying, hey, this is what we are doubling down on. This is our why. And then before you guys got to your hearing, they're like, no, 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 no. I mean, we may have been wrong, but it is still legal to do. I mean,
It
it's
is
just
amazing, by the way, I just wanna put a pin here. It is amazing that Ken Paxton, I mean, of all people, Ken Paxton, who is, like, perhaps the worst attorney general in the country, even he got it. He's like, "Hey, Abbott, shut up. Stop citing this letter from Pam Bondi's DOJ. You're gonna lose the case." And
yeah,
then he's like, "Hey, legislators, no, 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 no. It's
yeah,
not about race. It wasn't about
right,
coalition districts. It wasn't any
yeah,
of that." Like,
yeah,
even Ken Paxton figured out
yeah.
that they were screwing this up.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully we can get a just ruling as it relates to the temporary order that y'all are requesting. We
Right,
are
but what's
running.
going on with what do the maps mean? Like, break
Yeah.
it
So
down for
as
someone who
so it
doesn't
relates.
know the ins and outs of redistricting law. What is it 5 seats for real? Is it like is it like what did they do exactly?
Yeah. So okay. So when you look at North Texas currently has three safe Democratic seats. It has my seat, it has Mark VC's seat, and it also has Julie Johnson's seat. In the new map, they have created a situation where there are only two safe Democratic seats, and they basically packed those seats. So my district is a Section 2 seat, which we will see what the Supreme Court ultimately does with Section 2. It is the most compact district in the entire state of Texas, yet it is naturally occurring that over 50% of the citizen voting age population prior to the 21 maps, it was 52% citizen voting age population were African Americans. They reduced it down to 48%, still enjoyed the protection. And so what they've done though is they've consistently used my district. They've decided, like over in Grand Prairie, a city that sits in both Dallas County and Tarrant County, they were very concerned about the Tarrant County side, so they divided the city into three on the Tarrant County side because of how diverse it was getting. So they gave me a sliver, and then they gave the other two slivers to Republicans. They've diluted the voices of people of color.
And this is
Ultimately, under
This
this,
is the Dallas area, right?
this is the Dallas area, but the entire map does this, to be
Okay.
perfectly honest. We know that African Americans under this map only have the voting strength approximately of one fifth of their Anglo Texans, and we know that our brown brothers and sisters only have about one third the voting strength of our Anglo brothers and sisters in Texas. But here's the deal. Okay, so yes, Texas 30 is still safe. Texas 33 is still safe. I will say that Texas 32, which is the seat that Julie Johnson currently has, I think that that is a wash. I don't think that we win it. I do think Beth Van Dyne is on the chopping block, though. And Beth Van Dyne was in a tight seat before. If you go back just right before we did redistricting, Joe Biden won her seat. Unfortunately, our candidate did not win, but Joe Biden won it. So then they short her up, but they still short her up with less than 10 points. And as we've seen since he's been elected, Democrats have been swinging no less than 10 points in special elections. On the 4th, it was even bigger swings in a lot of different places, a lot bigger than 10 points. So I say that 10 points is our bottom. In addition to that, when you look at what they did down at the border, so we have 3 seats that sit right there. In redistricting before, they thought they were making all 3 of those seats Republican. Only one Republican won out of the 3. That's Monica De La Cruz. There is now a very popular Latin artist that is running against her, and frankly, she's afraid because of his popularity. And I say that because there is something to be said for people that already have a brand that people already trust. Well, she still hasn't created a brand, right? She's basically a generic R, but there are people that have been listening to him for years. So we will see, but I don't know that that's a safe seat for her. In addition to that, Henry Cuellar has been under indictment, had his home raided, and he still won. And the last time that he won, Trump had won that district by 7 points. With the shift that we're seeing in Latinos, I don't think Henry Cuellar loses his seat. He is a very unique individual who has been able to weather some of the most difficult storms, to be perfectly honest. And I think, again, it goes to the fact that he has real relationships with the people down in that area. Before Henry Cuellar came to Congress, he served on the state level. So he's represented so many different parts. And he goes home every single weekend and he works every part of his district. So I don't think they're getting rid of Henry Cuellar. Same thing with Vicente Gonzalez. I don't know who's even running against Vicente at this point, but I can tell you that Vicente has been doing great numbers on raising money and he's known in that area. So I don't think that it's going to be what they want and hope it to be for those 3 seats. Houston gets a little funny. So we have
They're
Briscoe County.
always targeting, by the way, Houston. I noticed this. Like the
Yeah,
legislature seems to always find a way to target
yeah.
Harris County.
Yeah. Harris County is the largest county that we have in the state. And it neighbors the most diverse county that we have in the state, which is Fort Bend. And Fort Bend is actually one of the most diverse counties in the entire country. And so, what they are trying to do is Harris County, like they were able to get some Republican wins in the last election, and they are trying to keep it, to where they've got a fighting chance in some way. If they can win some things countywide, then they're able to make sure that they can get some of those state reps in and some of those state senators in and that kind of stuff. So they do make it, I mean, when you talk about it being targeted, Harris County was so creative during COVID to
Right.
give unprecedented access to the ballot box that like instead of that being celebrated,
Yeah.
there was rebuke, right?
It was
And so
crazy.
that's what they did. And so Briscoe Kane has already announced that he's planning on running for a seat that really the way that they're painting it is they're saying it's a Latino opportunity seat. And I think that once y'all get into trial and that kind of stuff, we'll see that it's not really a Latino opportunity seat because they're taking kind of voters that don't really participate, and they're using that to kind of pile it up. And they're claiming it's a Latino opportunity seat, but when you look at it, it looks like Anglo's will be the ones to be able to pick. But that's if Latinos don't actually show up. They may be in for a rude awakening, and they may not only show up, but they may show up and they may be voting against the Republicans for everything that they're doing with their targeting of Latinos, not only in our state, but throughout the country. The images are just horrific. They are not what they promised. They promised that they were going to make us safer. And instead, they're bringing in ICE to our communities and making us less safe. And we know that we have a historic number of deaths within ICE custody right now. In fact, it's historic for this amount of time. But to literally put it into context, we know that they've had more people die in ICE custody up until now than they've had in the last 4 years combined. That is how bad it is. So I think, maybe they pick up one or two, but I don't think they get to five. Even if these lines stand, I don't think they get to five.
So I got to ask you because your name has been floated all over Washington, D.C., and I'm sure all over Texas as a potential U.S. Senate candidate. Um, uh, what can you tell us?
Yeah, I am considering it, is what I can tell you. I think that we're living in unprecedented times. And I think an unprecedented candidacy is what we need to do in Texas if we're going to do something different. There's a couple of things that make it unprecedented about me. Number one, typically it is very difficult to get your name ID to be anywhere in a state of 30 million people. And the only two people in this race that have higher name ID have had well over $100 million. Actually, not even in this race. One is in the race, one is not in the race. They've had well over $100 million spent on them, right? I haven't. I represent one third of or 138th of the state, and my name ID is just as high. And so I think when you're talking about how expensive these races are, starting with someone who is known and has a brand that doesn't take shit from anybody and is always going to look out for the people. I think, especially in this moment when you have an administration that's like, yeah, cut off the food. I don't care what the courts say, like, don't feed them while I'm throwing a party at Mar-a-Lago, right? A Great Gatsby themed party at that. I think that there are Texans that are just looking for someone who's Texas tough and will put them first. And, I'm not here to say that all Texans would always agree with me, but I do think that because I'm starting a little bit further along than typically what we do when we launch into a Senate or any statewide candidacy. But me starting off further ahead, and I've already been beat up by the Republicans. They're like, what else are you gonna like? They make up all the lot. They run me on Fox News all the time, like all the time, right? So it's like, what new tricks do you have? You don't have any. You've made up all the lies you can find, and they don't stick. And I think that we've got to look for a candidate that can add to the electorate. I think if it's just the same old electorate, we'll get the same results. But we've got to have somebody that can motivate people that have never ever cared about politics and really don't pay attention. And I think that I'm uniquely suited to do that, but we're looking for some data. So there's a poll that came out today that was really interesting as well. But what I'm running now is going to be formed a little differently to talk to those voters that have never voted and find out if there's any candidate that would make them vote, as well as going and talking to those Obama voters, those people that only showed up for him.
Yeah. So look, I think one of your great strengths, and I was going to ask you about this, not just in the context of you maybe running for Senate, but honestly, just about the Democratic Party as a whole, is you fight and you fight hard. And I've been preaching this now. I feel like, and I'm losing my voice over it. Voters want someone who they feel like every day wakes up and is fighting for them. And even if they don't agree with them on every issue, they want someone who just they feel like is in their corner and is willing to go out on a limb for them. And you have been fighting this administration every fucking day. Like
Yeah.
on every you don't give an inch and you fight hard. And so, I think that that would serve you well in a Senate race in Texas, but I think it also serves you, frankly, in the Democratic Party well nationally. And I'm just curious, like, is that just who you are? Is that like a choice you made? And why don't we see more? I mean, I'm asking this question for like millions of Democrats. Why, why don't we see more of that, all over the place?
Yeah, it's just who I am. I mean, Mark, you're an attorney as well, but you've not been in my courtrooms a lot, right? Where typically you walk in, say as a court appointed attorney or as a public defender, you're an underdog. And you may have a client and you've got limited resources to be able to put up the defense that you really want to put up for them because you really believe in your client. But nevertheless, I don't get to put up excuses. I've
Hmm.
always had to fight for people that were downtrodden, historically, that were not the main subject of a conversation, but instead an afterthought. And so I do think that it's just what I've been trained to do. And so it is very easy for me to see the humanity of all people and be able to communicate, even if it's somebody who is on the other side of the political spectrum. I've had people walk up to me in airports and in cities all over and tell me they're Republicans that love me. And I know that that sounds probably strange to people, but I think a traditional Republican doesn't necessarily hate me, because what is wrong with saying, "Hey, you were supposed to send money to our state and you're withholding those funds," right? What is so wrong in me saying that I, as a civil rights lawyer, am going to stand up for the civil rights and liberties of all people? You don't have to agree, but like if I really was ever true to like what I was doing, then that's what I should do, right? And at the end of the day, me standing up for the civil rights and liberties of all people doesn't necessarily make you downtrodden. I will fight and hopefully win for everybody. So um I think being a fighter for the people is what people are looking for. I think one of the reasons you saw what happened in New York is because he said he was going to fight for the people that are forgotten, not the rich people, but the people that are barely making it by in one of the most expensive cities in this country. He said he was going to fight for them. And even though there were naysayers who said he can't do this, he can't do that, guess what? There are people that are believing that he is going to try to do everything that he said he wanted to do on behalf of them. And they felt like, why is it that we should be mad at somebody who wants to help? Why? Like, why would you be mad? So we'll see, but we don't want to just do something just to be doing it. We've got to be very thoughtful. And as you said, my attorney general is a fucking train wreck. He is a train wreck of an individual. He's a train wreck of an elected official. And frankly, he's had to endure the bar complaints, unfortunately, that were thrown out because he's also a terrible lawyer. He just recently decided he was going to sue Tylenol because it causes autism.
And yet he
Because
was
he
a better
learned,
lawyer than Greg Abbott's lawyers about the redistricting.
yeah, exactly.
All right. So
So there's a lot.
Do you think he beats Cornyn in the primary?
I know that they're afraid that he's gonna beat Cornyn, and I have to wait until the last minute. Even if everything looks really, really good, I'll tell you that this literally is gonna be the first time that I'm polling. But in all general polls that I've seen that have done a general matchup of me and Paxton, I'm 1 point behind him, which is within the margin of error
Yep.
in all polls, and that's without him being fully beat up on by Cornyn just yet, right? By the time you get through that primary election, he's going to be beat down even more. At least for those in the middle. So, reporting today is that Cornyn is really courting the president really, really hard for an endorsement. I think that that is a double edged sword. I think it absolutely gets him, I don't know, it maybe gets him through the primary. Um, he's got a better shot at the primary with the president's endorsement. But at the same time, if you look at what happened on November 4th, that wasn't
Absolutely.
good. That was not the endorsement that you wanted. You would prefer that he just stayed out of your race. So,
Yep.
very interesting line that he's having to walk, but we wanna pay attention, we wanna be thoughtful, and I really wanna hear from the people. People have been asking me ever since actually, redistricting and testifying and stuff, if I would consider it, if I would do it. But we've got to figure out a way to heal and pull together a very strong, excited, vibrant coalition and just do things a lot differently than they've ever been done and give it my all. If I get in that thing, we're running. We're running hard.
I have no doubt you will give it your all because you give your all for everything, and that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why people love you so much. You mentioned earlier on your concerns about the 2026 elections. So whether you are running for House or for Senate or for whatever, like we are going to face a Donald Trump and Republican Party that is all in on voter suppression and election subversion. How worried are you about that? You know, obviously, I spend my days worrying about it, and I try to tell people that we can't be we have to be realistic about it. We can't like act as if it's not happening, but we need to organize, we need to fight, we need to be in court, we need to be out in the communities explaining what's happening. What is your level of alarm and what's your message to people who are really worried about it?
Um, they should be worried. They should be worried. I am worried. That is my message. But I will also tell you that some of this is just straight up scare tactics. And doing election law, part of voter suppression is to scare people, right? And so we know that he made threats to send federal troops
Mhm.
into California for their state election, not federal election. Yes, it impacted federal seats, but this was state business, okay?
It's a state
Um,
ballot initiative. It wasn't even candidate elections.
it was not. It was not, right? And a lot of that was to cause confusion and to cause fear. And so, just like we've been able to show up in record numbers to No Kings Day rallies, I think that the infrastructure that was put together for No Kings, we need to take that type of infrastructure. We need to make sure that Indivisible, who's been doing so much great work around the No Kings rallies, starts to translate that into more than a rally but a training ground, right? A training ground for citizens to know their rights all around the country and know what's what. If you can imagine the number of people that you saw show up in Chicago or LA or some of these places, but now we know that they are all trained up and they understand what it is. And we encourage people to say, hey, I know it may be a big deal, but if you can afford to. We just need you to commit to at least one day off a piece, right? And have people that are trained and know the law and are compassionate and they're showing up. And it's not just the bullies that are right there at the polls, but instead, it's the real people, the people that are fighting for our democracy. So I think that we've got to make sure that we are expanding our thought about what our army should look like. It doesn't just have to be the trained lawyers that we get who take off and they do their thing. It can be lawyers that are training everyday citizens
Yep.
to be armed with the information that they need so that they can be poll watchers, so that they can report in real time, so that we can get into court. So you can get into court quicker and really start to get some emergency orders on things that we see taking place. But we've got to fight like our lives depend on it because, to be perfectly honest, they do. People are literally going to die because of the policies that this administration is pushing, whether it's starvation or whether it's a lack of health care or whether it's the simple fact that people I laugh, but it's crazy. Like they are depressing people. Like people are freaking depressed right now. And one of the best things about the recent election was the joy
Yeah.
that it injected.
Yeah,
Like we
that's
just
right.
needed some joy for like one day. And it did that.